What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to today's video, where we are going to be talking yet again about the launch ratings. And this is a popular video we've done over the last couple years. And it's where we look through every single team, all 32 teams. We'll start with the Patriots, go all the way down to the NFC West, and look at every single roster. And I will give you, in my opinion, I'm going to try to back it up with some factual evidence, the worst rating on every single team. So in the context of the video, the worst rating doesn't mean like the lowest overall player on the team, but in my opinion, the worst rating is a player that is either overrated or underrated. What player got way too generous of a base overall? What player got absolutely robbed on the rating and should be a lot higher? So there's definitely always gonna be some room for debate, but I feel like this year more than ever, it almost felt like there was one player, almost like one key player on every single team that stuck out like a sore thumb for one way or another, be it positive or negative. So we're going to start right away with the New England Patriots, the Super Bowl champions. Their roster was pretty evenly balanced, if I have to say so myself, but the one that kind of stuck out a little bit to me was Julian Edelman. Julian Edelman got an 89 overall, which is, you know, he is one of the best slot wide receivers in football. How much value do you put on his performance in the playoffs? He's easily, right now, over the last like decade, probably top 5 wide receiver in the playoffs. You know, him and Larry Fitzgerald definitely right up there at the tops. But when you look at the regular season, he only had 850 yards and 6 touchdowns. Now, Julian Edelman should get a good rating, but 89 for my money, just right out of the upper echelon. I think he was number 12 or 13 in total wide receivers. It just looks a little weird. And generally, this is almost kudos to the team. I know Swami is on the analytics and ratings team, and he's a Patriot fan. His team, it looked really good, pretty fair for the most part. It just looks a little weird seeing Julian Edelman at an 89, higher than some premier outside wide receivers still. So yeah, I will say though, have to admit right off the bat, almost nitpicking to a degree with the Patriots because a lot of the ratings were kind of fair. Maybe Michael Bennett could have been a little bit higher too than 85. He was really good, in my opinion, a little bit better than Brandon Graham on the Eagles, and Brandon Graham got an 89. So to go to bat for a Patriot, I thought maybe Michael Bennett could have been a little higher. Moving on to the New York Jets, I'm coming in with Brian Winters, the guard who got an 82 overall. Last year, he was graded out as the number 34 guard in the league by Pro Football Focus, yet he's number 12 in the game. I think he's like 7 or 8 at his respective position. I think it's right guard, so it's just far too high for a guard that's bang on average. I don't know if they did this to try to help out Le'Veon Bell, like when you know, just casual players are playing as Le'Veon. Give a couple decent players on that offensive line, and maybe, you know, he won't get stuffed behind the line of scrimmage every time, and then I'll get more people to play the Jets. I don't really know. Moving to the Miami Dolphins, we have Xavius Howard, who got an 83 overall. Now, I'm not this, you know, I asked this on Twitter. I was like, give me your guys' most outrageous ratings in Madden 20. And Xavius Howard came up a lot. He got an 83. And yes, I do know he got 7 interceptions, 12 pass breakups. Interceptions don't always tell the whole story. You know, how many catches does he give up? Is he getting picked on in coverage? Is he a boomer bust player, which is what he really is? He's the kind of guy that will give up 4 or 5 easy catches that will make you think, man, this guy's a bum corner, and then he will punish a quarterback with an interception. Very similar to like Marcus Peters. Still, though, 7 picks, 12 passes. He's one of the best ball hawks. You know, while he is one-dimensional, that's like literally saying like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is like a pure deep threat. He's not a guy that can run the same kind of route tree as Adam Thielen, for an example, but he's still really, really good at one aspect of his game, and he gets rewarded. Tyreek got a 94 overall. So I feel like with Xavius Howard, you take the good with the bad, and understanding that he is a pure ball hawk, I would say 83 is still a tad bit too low. I'd be looking at around 87, 88 for Xavius Howard, still putting him outside of the top 10, which could be still a triggering point for those of us that look at player analysis and see just the interceptions and just the sacks. But I think 83 is a little low for Xavius Howard. I would even just say bottom tier should be 85 plus. And then finishing up with the Buffalo Bills, I'm looking at Lorenzo Alexander, outside linebacker, got an 82 overall. Too low for the ageless wonder. He was the number 5 linebacker from Pro Football Focus last year. 74 tackles, 2 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 6.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. He was incredibly well-rounded, did everything right, yet he's still only an 82. Seeing some other linebacker, like for example, I know it's a tough one when we always talk about it. Ryan Shazier is still holding an 84 overall. He's probably never going to play again. If he does play, it'll be a miracle. But, you know, just for comparison, it's not the best example, but just giving you an idea. Lorenzo Alexander is out there every week doing the damn thing, a top 5 linebacker in the league, yet he only gets an 82. That is very harsh. Moving on to the AFC North, we're going to take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I was shocked to see TJ Watt only get an 82 overall. 13 sacks, 12 TFLs, 6 forced fumbles on 68 tackles last year. I would have thought he was going to be 87, 88, somewhere in that territory. Like when I did my live reactions video, that was probably like my biggest like WTF was when I was looking at TJ Watt's rating. James Conner also a little suspect, getting an 83, yet he put up 1,400 yards from scrimmage and 13 touchdowns. I would have thought he would have came in 85, 86, somewhere in that territory. Looking at the Cincinnati Bengals, we're going to talk about Tyler Eifert, who got an 88 overall, tied for 6th highest grade at tight end at launch in Madden 20. Yet, over the last 3 years, he has a combined 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. Like, that is an embarrassing rating to give out Eifert. Yeah, he's good when he's healthy. He's not healthy at all. That 88 is a slap. But here's an example. He's an 88. George Kittle, who broke records last year, is a 90. Taking a look at the Baltimore Ravens, I want to take a look at D-tackle Michael Pierce, who got a 92 overall. Now, he's the number 5 graded D-tackle from Pro Football Focus, yet he still got no sacks. He only had 4 tackles for loss. And there is, I feel, overvaluing a run stuffer. You know what I'm saying? Like, Snacks always gets a good rating. I think Snacks is only 1 point behind Fletcher Cox for the top D tackle. But he still gets really good tackles for loss. Still gets some pretty good box score stats. But Michael Pierce, 0 sacks, 4 TFLs. And you put him ahead of Geno Atkins, DeForest Buckner, Chris Jones. No. Like, this is like a common one I saw Baltimore Raven fans. The worst two, and we'll get to it, is Michael Pierce for the Raven fans and Niner fans saying Richard Sherman was far too high. Like, anytime you go after your own team in these, like, when I ask for these feedback and stuff, it definitely raises an eyebrow. So I think for me, Michael Pierce probably would have been fine being 87, 88, 89, somewhere in that territory. But it definitely looks a lot worse because you see number 5 for Pro Football Focus. It is what it is. I'm not a huge PFF guy, but I understand that the Madden's rating team uses it a lot. So I'm going to kind of use it in my arguments against their work. But Michael Pierce going ahead of Geno Atkins, Chris Jones, DeForest Buckner, much more versatile defensive tackles. Very, very surprising. Looking at the Cleveland Browns, this was a tough one. I agreed with pretty much everything that went down on this roster, so I kind of had to dig through the weeds, get a player that I've been a big fan of since his college days, and that is the original Hollywood, not Hollywood Brown of the Ravens, but Hollywood Higgins, Rashard Higgins. He only got a 73 overall, which, looking at some of the other wide receivers around the league, I put up numbers that were kind of similar. I mean, 73 overall, he had 570 yards and 4 touchdowns and wasn't even a consistent starter last season. Whereas you can look at guys... Danny Amendola had 501, and he's an 81 overall. Allen Robinson, 704. He's an 86 overall. So seeing Hollywood Higgins only get a 73 definitely stuck out like a sore thumb for me when I was trying to pick through what was generally a very good, well-rated team in the Cleveland Browns. Moving on to the AFC South. We're going to start with the Houston Texans. I'm going to talk about Jadeveon Clowney, who got a 92 overall. He's number 8 from Pro Football Focus. He had 9 sacks, 16 TFLs. He's a good player, really good player. I think 92 is just a tad bit too high. He's the number 1 right outside linebacker, I believe. Yes, he is. Yeah, number 1 right outside linebacker in the game. Just a little too rich for my blood. But generally speaking, Texans roster didn't look too bad. Look at the Indianapolis Colts. We have Darius Leonard, Defensive Rookie of the Year, got an 84. He had 163 tackles, 2 interceptions, 8 pass breakups, 4 forced fumbles, 7 sacks, 12 TFLs last season. And he came in lower. And he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he came in lower than Leighton Vander Esch by 2 points. We already know the whole Cowboys thing. That is, as like the Cowboys roster generally, I'm not going to be able to nitpick it until I see the dev traits truly. It's not terrible. It's not as bad as everyone just sees it right away and goes, oh, Cowboys rating guy. But this is incredibly biased. This guy literally was the best rookie in the league last year. Statistically speaking, he got the award. Yet the Dallas Cowboy linebacker, that was very good, outstanding as well. 2 points higher. That is the easiest sense of bias towards the Cowboys in this game. Another one, a lot of people brought it up, was Anthony Walker, linebacker there, starting linebacker. He only got a 69 overall, but yet he finished the season with 105 tackles, an interception, and 10 TFLs. I mean, linebackers usually... it goes back to PFF. I find like they don't look at the box score for linebackers; they go by PFF, which is it's a good balance. But that was far too extreme because Walker's stats should at least put him at like a 75 or somewhere in that territory. Take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's going to talk about Telvin Smith, who got an 88 overall. Yet it was down year, man. It was a down year for Telvin Smith. Did not look like the same linebacker he was 2 years ago. He was the number 44th linebacker for Pro Football Focus. Only really had 134 tackles. Outside of that, his turnover stats, his cover stats weren't very good. So that was just a little shocking to have his rating still that high. And then looking at the Tennessee Titans, we're going to talk about Delanie Walker, who got a 92 overall. He played in one game last season, and he's the third highest tight end in the game. He's higher than George Kittle. Delanie Walker's very good, very underrated, incredibly well-rounded in terms of a catcher and a blocker. He's like the number one receiver on the Tennessee Titans. He didn't play last year. George Kittle broke a record. Change it. Even Delanie coming in at 4. There is a lot of injury concerns after Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, and George Kittle. That's when you start to get into the Eiferts. You start to get into the Greg Olsons, talented tight ends that are affected by injury. But putting Delanie Walker at a 92 ahead of George Kittle, you're just trying to be like, that's too hipster for me. You're just trying to be too loyal to a player's assumed talent that he's not regressing and he didn't play last season over a guy that's, might be the next guy to take over for a Gronk. Not a good look. And then finishing up in the AFC, we're going to go with the AFC West. We'll start with the Oakland Raiders. I'm going to take a look at Tyrell Williams. Now, this is the team that I'm going to be using for my franchise mode, so I'm going to be happy with any of these overrated ratings. But they gave Tyrell Williams an 83 overall. He had 650 yards and 5 touchdowns last season. Again, we got Hollywood Higgins. Hollywood Higgins had almost 604. He got a 73. Tyrell Williams got 605. 83. Big gap. Real big gap. Take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to talk about Chris Jones, defensive tackle, only getting an 89 overall, 15.5 sacks, 19 TFLs, had a pick last season, almost consensus. What was he, second team All-Pro? Yet he's the number 6 rated D tackle. You have Snacks Harris, Michael Pierce, Geno Atkins, Kenny Clark over Chris Jones, and the fact that he also got robbed on a Superstar X Factor. Kansas City Chiefs fans don't have a lot to complain about because Tyreek, Mecole Hardman, and Patrick Mahomes are going to be just unbelievable, but Chris Jones got robbed big time. Moving to the Denver Broncos, Bradley Chubb only getting an 80 overall after an outstanding rookie season, which saw him get 12 sacks and 14 TFLs. There was points at times that he looked better than Von Miller, so I feel like 80 is a little low for Bradley Chubb. I would have had him coming in 83, 84, 85, somewhere in that territory, but it does seem already, just from this video, that outside linebackers that are like 3-4 outside linebackers, they're getting, a part of that ratings curve, the ratings stretch, which the more and more you look at it, the more and more there's still some very surprising ratings. Outside linebackers, though, like Bradley Chubb, definitely got affected with their base overall. And then finishing up in the West, we have the Chargers. And I'm going to bring up Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers getting a 94 overall, 4,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 picks. He's a good quarterback. He is underrated. Not in Madden. A 94 for Phillip Rivers, putting him over Aaron Rodgers, putting him over Russell Wilson. For a guy that just had an okay, he had a solid Phillip Rivers season, and then went to the playoffs and did what he does every year and never leave his team to victory. Yet he gets a 94. I don't know what the hard-on was for Phillip Rivers. He probably could be a 90, but a 94 is far too overreaching for what his base rating in Madden 20 should be. Moving to the NFC East, we'll start with the Eagles because it starts to feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. We're going to talk about Carson Wentz getting an 82. He was the unofficial, and I'm always going to bring that up, 2017 MVP, yet Mayfield, Goff, and Cam Newton are higher than him. Carson Wentz should have been an 84, point blank, period. You can't convince me otherwise. Moving to the Giants, I'm going to say Golden Tate getting an 85, considering he had 800 yards and 4 touchdowns last season. I was shocked. I would put Sterling Shepard ahead of Golden Tate for a base overall. So that was kind of surprising. And Daniel Jones getting a 63. I know it's a meme at this point. Probably still shouldn't be that low. The fact that like Tyree Jackson, who I personally, I think I rate Tyree Jackson a little bit higher than Daniel Jones as a prospect, but still, Daniel Jones getting a 63. He should have got like a 68, 67, 68, somewhere in that territory. I think 63 is just a little bit too harsh because he definitely has upside. It was a terrible pick, a horrible pick, but the upside still is there. So I feel like 63 is too low for him. Well, in the Washington Redskins, I got 2 negatives. First off, we're starting with Trent Williams. We got a 95 overall. He's the second highest offensive tackle, second highest left tackle in the game. Yet he was number 21 offensive tackle from Pro Football Focus. I know, the whole Clint Oldenburg, big dog there at Madden. I'm pretty sure he's a Redskins fan. So maybe there was some generous ratings going on there. Trent Williams is very good, but I don't think he's 95 good. I mean, look, Jason Peters is really good in like the same vein as Trent Williams. Like, they're ageless wonders. Doesn't matter how old they get, they play at high level. But Jason Peters is an 87. Trent Williams is a 95. That's too big of a discrepancy. And then we got Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed got an 88, and I say this, he's always a polarizing player to talk about because I loved him when he was at Florida. Now he's in a divisional rival, so it's a little bit weird. But at 88 for Jordan Reed, he was the number 14 ranked tight end in Pro Football Focus. He finished with 560 yards and 2 touchdowns last year, tied for 6 overall for tight ends. He is consistently overrated. He is a tremendous receiver, but he's not an 88 anymore. He could maybe if they get some consistent quarterback play, but right now I think for Jordan Reed, he's like an 84, 85. He's not, one looking on the outside to be a top 5 tight end at Madden 20 on release. And then finishing up with the Dallas Cowboys. We're not going to spend too much time on it because I talked about it in last night's video, but we got Amari Cooper at an 89 overall. Dude had 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. He's looking like, hey, he might be hitting that potential finally from Alabama, top recruit. Yeah, I would start Amari Cooper at like a 86, 87. And then, the debate could be if a Golden Tate's an 85, should Amari Cooper be an 89? Yes, but I'm hitting on all these ratings for wide receivers in particular that are far too high. They're all generally, for some of the outliers, way too high, and Cooper should be an 86. Tyron Smith got a 94 overall. He was the number 9 offensive left tackle for Pro Football Focus, yet he's number 3 in the game. Dallas Cowboy bias. Travis Frederick got a 94. He is tied for the top center in the game. Yeah, you had people like Jason Kelsey, Alex Mack, Rodney Hudson play extremely well last season, whereas Frederick didn't even take the field. Like, there should be at least like a 5-point regression if you missed an entire season. Now, obviously, his case is a little bit unique because it's the illness and stuff like that, but I think it's a slap in the face to still have him as the best player at his position for not playing an entire season. Moving to the NFC North, we're going to start with the Detroit Lions, and we're going to talk about Danny Amendola getting an 81 overall. Generally speaking, the Lions rating seemed pretty fair. Maybe you could argue Stafford being below an 80. It's a little bit of a head scratcher, but Amendola sticks out like a sore thumb to me. He had 750 yards, he had 570 yards last year and a touchdown, yet he gets an 80 plus. I don't know why he's still overrated. For the Green Bay Packers, we're going to look at Mike Daniels at defensive end, 87 overall, yet he came in as the number 58 defensive end from Pro Football Focus, 2 sacks and 1 TFL last season. 87's way too high. He probably should have been like 82, 83, somewhere in that territory. Still a strong player, but definitely, on the downswing of his career. Look at the Chicago Bears. I got a good and a bad. The bad rating is Allen Robinson getting an 86. I mean, I liked Allen Robinson. AR-15 was a huge, guy on our channel 2 years ago for our Husky series. But let's be honest, kind of underwhelmed last year. 750 yards, 4 touchdowns. Supposed to come in, be this legit wide receiver 1 in Matt Nagy's offense. He underwhelmed. 86 is way too high for Allen Robinson. He should probably be 82. And then Mitchell Trubisky only getting a 75. I think they're dogging him just a little bit. 3,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, 12 picks last year, as well as 400 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. I'd put Trubisky probably 77, 76, 77. But it's more so the quarterbacks that he's around. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I'd say 77 for sure for Trubisky. And then taking a look at the Minnesota Vikings in the division, Stephon Diggs getting a 93 overall is the most overrated rating in this game, without a shadow of a doubt. He had his first 1,000-yard season. He had 9 touchdowns last year, yet he comes in as the number 8 wide receiver at launch in Madden 20, ahead of Mike Evans, who's had countless 1,000-yard seasons, had 1,500 yards last year. So, Stephon Diggs, I don't know what it is, honestly. I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan. He shouldn't be higher than a lot of the wide receivers on that list. I'd say 88 is probably a fair starting point here for Stephon Diggs. It's just the miracle, man. The miracle at whatever the hell they call it, their stadium, when they beat the Saints. They're still riding that hype train for his rating, I think. A bad rating for the Vikings is Danielle Hunter, only getting an 86. He had 14.5 sacks, 21 TFLs, 72 tackles. I would have had him, probably 88, 89, somewhere in that territory. Really, really good edge rusher. Moving to the NFC South, we're going to start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ali Marpet getting an 88 overall. He was the number 1 left guard in the game at Madden's launch, yet he was the number 8 guard from Pro Football Focus. Seems like a pretty big discrepancy there. And then Mike Evans only getting a 91 overall. Like I said, just in comparison to Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans had 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns last year with an assumed lesser quarterback. They didn't even really have a legit quarterback last year between Jameis Winston and Fitzpatrick versus Diggs, who had, Mr. $1 trillion man and Kirk Cousins. So, by comparison, Mike Evans should be higher. Look at the New Orleans Saints. Cam Meredith, for whatever reason, he still gets great ratings. He's a 79 overall. However, in the last 2 years, he's combined 100 yards and 1 touchdown. He should be like a 70. Look at Atlanta. Calvin Ridley only getting a 79 overall after having an outstanding rookie season. 820 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. I probably would have had Calvin Ridley 82, 81, 82, somewhere in that range. And then finishing up with the Carolina Panthers, Greg Olson getting an 89 overall. G-Reg with that third leg. I'm a big fan of Greg Olson. However, in the last 2 seasons combined, he has 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. He cannot stay healthy, yet he's still number 5 ranked tight end in the game. It's just very, very concerning to see where they're coming up with these tight end rankings. It's like they're just ignoring the fact that some of these guys haven't been playing, and they're like, well, if they're at their potential, they're probably around this rating. You can't really do that. And then finishing up here in the NFC West, we're going with the Rams. And we'll start with Corey Littleton, the linebacker, got a 75 overall. However, he finished with 125 tackles, 3 picks, 13 pass breakups, 4 sacks, 9 TFLs. Was all over the defense for the Rams. And I get you can't just look at the box score here, but 75 for those kind of stats, that kind of production last year is still kind of low. I probably would have had Littleton, under 80 as a max. But I think like a 78, 79, somewhere like that would be fair, not a 75. And then looking at Aqib Talib getting an 87. He had 1 pick last year. He was the number 20 corner from Pro Football Focus, yet he still grades out, fairly well. I think 87 is just a little too high for Talib. Taking a look at the Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson getting a 91. I hate Russell Wilson. Every time he plays my Eagles, he plays very, very well. I don't want to be the guy that's pounding the table for Russell Wilson, but a 91 is too low, man. He is arguably the most valuable player to their team in the National Football League. Yet you put Phillip Rivers ahead of him. Yet you put Andrew Luck, who's kind of just came back last season. You put Drew Brees, who was, he was pretty good last year. I was just surprised to see Andrew Luck way down there at 91. I thought for sure. I think if you gave Russell Wilson that 94 that they gave Phillip Rivers, and you gave Phillip Rivers that 91, the ratings would make a lot more sense. Take a look at the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to talk about Chandler Jones only getting an 82 overall. Again, when we're talking about Bradley Chubb with the Denver Broncos, it seems like outside linebackers that are more so defensive ends got really bad ratings because of the rating scale. But 82 for Chandler Jones. Over the last 2 seasons, he has 30 sacks, 41 tackles for loss, 100 tackles, 5 forced fumbles. He's been ridiculous for the Cardinals. And 82 is near criminal. It's one of the worst ratings. I think it's probably top 3. I think you probably have to look at Chris Jones, Stephon Diggs, and then you go right to Chandler Jones. Man, that is really, really bad. He should be, 86, 87 minimum, not 82. And then taking a look at the 49ers finishing up, I'm taking a look at DeForest Buckner only getting an 87 overall, 12 sacks, 17 TFLs, 67 tackles last season. Dominant force, the best pass rusher on that defense for the 49ers from the inside. I think 87 is far too low. I probably would have given him a 90, a straight up 90. And I did have a lot of people replying to my tweets, even Niner fans, saying Richard Sherman getting a 93 was still pretty high. I mean, he's a good corner. You can't just look at the box score. He doesn't give up a whole lot of receptions, but it's 93. I think he's the 3rd best corner in Madden at launch. I probably would have had him closer to 6, 7, somewhere in that range. Still really good, but not top 3. So there you go, guys. That's it, man. 20 minutes in, we got all of the best and worst ratings. We put them on blast here. If I missed any, make sure you let me know in the comment section below. As always, if it's your first time stopping by, Madden 20 Seasons, just getting revved up here on the channel. You don't want to miss out, so hit that subscribe button. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it. Until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.